ISIS, a terror network even worse than that. Iraq is in desperate need of our help, and today the president says it will get some, but not our ground troops.
We will not be sending U.S. troops back into combat in Iraq, but I have asked my national security team to prepare a range of other options that could help support Iraq security forces, and I'll be reviewing those options in the days ahead. We're also going to pursue intensive diplomacy throughout this period, both inside of Iraq and across the region.
All right, Senator John McCain and Army General Jack Keane have advice for the president.
I say to the President of the United States, get a new national security team in place. You have been ill-served by the national security team and the decisions that you have in place now and the decisions that you made.
What needs to be done here is not really rocket science in terms of military operation. I would put General Petraeus on an airplane.
All right, strong advice and words from two very experienced veterans suggesting how the president could better the situation and handle what's going on, which is a quickly disintegrating situation in the Middle East that can compromise U.S. National security interests. I already know around the table we've got some different opinions about how this should be handled. Let's take it around, starting with Andrea.
Well, we should be fracking the heck out of whatever we can in the United States of America and get ourselves off Middle Eastern oil, number one. Number two, I don't think there's a lot of good answers here. I mean, I've heard talk about airstrikes and bombing, but in order to conduct an effective bombing campaign, you have to have operations on the ground. And we just don't have that. I don't think President Obama is willing to put boots on the ground. I don't think the American people want to put boots on the ground. This has been an epic failure on so many different levels. I mean, Kimberly, he announced numerous times, telegraphed our timetable of when we were pulling out for political reasons. He's ignored the advice of generals and military officials. He doesn't listen to them anyway. They've told him what to do, and he said no, he's gone his own way. Then just last month, when he was at West Point giving an address, he said, we've decimated al-Qaeda on the border. Not true. This past Sunday, Daniel Henninger has an excellent column in the Wall Street Journal yesterday that goes through exactly the sequence of events. They attacked again on the border. More girls in Nigeria were kidnapped. Ukraine. President Obama then releases 5 dangerous terrorists. I mean, you can't think of a worse time for the Middle East to be burning to the ground and them achieving their ultimate goal of a caliphate takes place than on the heels of releasing 5 dangerous terrorists. So as much as people are saying we need to get involved, I'm not so certain that we do.
Well, the president is saying he's going to take the advice and weigh options as to what are the next best steps. So, again, we're saying what we're going to do, giving them some time to get even closer to their objective and their goal. So even if we do act, will it be sufficient? And is there, in fact, enough ground support to be able to make this a successful operation?
Well, you had administration officials on background telling reporters that this situation in Iraq snuck up on them, that they didn't know what was happening. So when John McCain suggests that President Obama ought to fire his national security team, I can understand that. However, in my opinion, it comes from the top. If you want to solve a problem, you have to first admit that you have one. And from the president's statement this morning, I think it sounds like we were going to have a commission and 6 months later we'll try to figure out something to do. I don't think we have that much time. Perhaps we will decide to do nothing. That's what I think the president was signaling today. However, we just have to admit to ourselves and be honest about the cost of that. And Iran getting involved in order to help, if that's what we're going to be willing to do, then we have to understand the cost. And then I would caution people to look over the weekend at what is going to happen in Jordan. Jordan, one of the most stable partners that we have in the Middle East. They already have over 1.5 million refugees. They're looking at 500,000 more. They will not be able to absorb them. And I think that if we don't do something, that Jordan will be next.
All right, I think that's good advice. Eric, I want you to take me through the political and the economic impact of this.
Well, the economic is clearly oil. It's all about oil. So I would agree with Andrew that the faster we become fully self-sufficient on our own oil, drilling, fracking, et cetera, the better we will be able to not deal with these Middle Eastern conflicts anymore. Iraq, very quickly. President Obama managed to lose a war we had already won. So what do you do there now? In my opinion, I don't think we go ahead and spend another, $500 billion, trillion to go and fix that situation. I think now you have to say, let's contain it. So what's the next step?
How do you do it?
Well, you let it play out, but if it starts to spread to other areas, then you have to get involved. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to set any more kids into action to die over fighting Sunnis and Shiite Muslims in a country that, frankly, even the winners hate us. That's my point there. Afghanistan, you still have time. Afghanistan, President Obama is calling for a complete pullout with the exception of a few thousand soldiers to stay there. He will lose 2 wars we've already won if he does that. So if Afghanistan, you need to keep a presence there, just like you do in Korea. North Korea doesn't go into South Korea because we have 40 or 50,000 troops there. We've done it in other places, Bosnia, etc. Keep your presence. Don't lose the 2nd war you've already won. So there. But as far as Iraq goes, man, we blew it. He blew it.
Well, but the problem is, though, we didn't have sufficient, ground support in terms of intel on the ground, real time, to see what was happening. But instead, we find out about it, on the news, essentially. But when it's too late and too much ground has been lost and given up, and I think that's a real problem because we should have maintained some presence there, and he should have pushed the point when he had the opportunity at the negotiating table. Bob?
I really don't know where to begin. First of all, the idea that we've won in Iraq and Afghanistan is absolutely, it just defies my imagination. But even worse than that was this General Kane, whatever his name is. He said, his answer was, let's put Petraeus on an airplane. To go where? To the Bahamas?
I don't think he was serious. He was just making a point of what could
possibly maybe, but
be done.
still, I mean, this is the problem, that nobody has an answer to this. It is not Obama's fault that all this has come down. These people have been fighting each other for 4,000 years, and this was predictable. And if you want to stop the Shiites and the Sunnis from fighting each other, then stay in there another 40 or 50 years.
But why make it easy? It appears as if President Obama is making it very easy.
Well, how?
For the radical Muslims to achieve the ultimate goal of getting the caliphate, and he just sort of tosses his hands up and going, I don't really care.
By not acting in Syria at the time when the opportunity was there to contain it.
I could agree with that.
And if we had been more decisive in supporting the people on the ground there in Syria, or maybe not even supportive of them, but of making sure that ISIS didn't have a chance to grow, yes, then I do think that President Obama, and Eric's got a great point. Iraq was pacified when President Obama came in. And that changed when they decided to take out the troops, but also they didn't redouble the efforts on the political side to try to make Maliki a better leader and to at least curtail his bad instincts.
Right. We spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars training the Iraqi military to take care of themselves, which was the idea.
However, they don't have any backup, Bob.
Wait a minute. Where do you go? What would you do? How many U.S. troops would have to stand in Mosul to stop that?
At this point,
40,
you can't fix the problem with
How many do we have in Korea, Bob?
40 or 50?
How many do we have in South Korea?
And is there an active war?
Just answer this. How many?
48,000.
Okay, so we should have pulled out of there?
From my standpoint, yes.
But look, so look where that got.
At the mercy of the North Korea.
That's not going to. The U.S. pulling out would not do that anymore. We're doing Japan. That was a treaty obligation we had.
Okay, here's another point of why they're making it easier very quickly. The leader of ISIS, the most radical, it's not even a terror group, it's an army, was released out of a prison in Iraq in 2009 by the Obama administration. Why? Why would you empty out prisons with dangerous criminals that are now coming back, marching, beheading people town through town, and the president's headed to Gulf this weekend?
Like the Taliban 5. Sounds familiar.
Huh?
What?
How many of those people you're fighting in there you think were released to the Bush administration? Do you think they all went home and started
possibly 40%.
making lamb chops? Huh?
Possibly 30%. That's been the rate.
Well, I mean,
3 and 10.
The whole point here is it's not pointing fingers at Bush and Obama. You can't blame Obama for all this. This is a war.
Why? You blame President Bush for everything up
I said from the beginning.
And even when President Obama took office, the liberals and the left and the Democrats, who, by the way, many of them voted for the war, including Hillary Clinton, and we got UN support, have been blaming President Bush even up until now. So at what point does it become President Obama's responsibility?
4,000 year fight between the Shiites and the Sunnis? We're out of your minds.
Was Iraq calm a year ago before President Obama pulled?
It was not. They didn't have a stable government. I mean,
we're going.
All right, okay.
We gotta go.
I hear you, Porter.
We gotta go. We're going to review. We gotta cut him off. I'm out.